Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Santita Jackson Show, the story that just keeps on giving as we talk about President Obama and uh, comments that he made that were directed at Black men, trying to get Black men to be more supportive of Kamala Harris. But there's been backlash. So let's talk about this here on AM 950 Radio, the voice of progressive Minnesota. And of course, I am on the Santita Jackson Show YouTube channel. Please like and subscribe there and share the show, like and share the show. And then go to the Santita Jackson and Friends page on Facebook. Let's go there. Let's go there and like the show, and at Santita J on X. And of course, at Santita J Show on X as well. And so I've got, of course, who's hanging around with us? Attorney Mark Fancher, Dr. LaShawn Latrice, community psychologist, of course. Attorney Mark Fancher, brilliant civil libertarian, of course. Now, how many jobs does she have? She's the chair of Rainbow Push, Court TV, legal analyst, former president of the National Bar Association, the largest and oldest Black bar association in the world, Attorney C.K. Hoffler. When they heard that I had this man on today, they said, "Oh, we just want to hear him," and we always want to hear this man because his brilliance is just you really have no peer. Indeed, you've been a teacher to us all. Met you when you were my brother's professor when he was in seminary. But indeed, you have been someone who, the great questions of the day, whether they're philosophical, political, theological, I want to know what Reverend Dr. Michael Eric Dyson thinks. You have been able to tap into really the lifeline, not just of the Black community, but of the human community. And I thank God for the work that you have done down through the years. And of course, love your wife too, Reverend Marcia Dyson. Have known her all of my life. And we're just so blessed to have you. I have every one of your books. And I always want to know what you have to say. So when you spoke at my church yesterday where I was,
Yes, ma'am.
where all the Jacksons were baptized and where
Yes,
our
ma'am.
father was the co-pastor. And of
Mhm.
course, my brother, Congressman Jonathan Jackson, was calling me while I was on the air doing my radio show. Need to hear what Reverend Michael Eric Dyson had to say, because everyone is talking about President Obama's appeal to Black men and the way that he did it.
Right.
And I want to hear what your thoughts are. Help us
Yes, ma'am.
in this, because there's a lot in this moment, and I really I've had several discussions about that today, and yours is the culminating discussion in so many ways.
Yes, ma'am. Well, first of all, it's an honor to be here. Have enjoyed and appreciated your brilliance over the decades, really. You've been a long distance soldier, like your father and your family and your wonderful mother. So I'm deeply honored to be here. And of course, my dear friend, C.K. Hoffler, if she's on the program, I don't even know why I need to be on. She's doing her thing. And Dr. Latrice, and of course, Attorney Fancher. You got the lineup. I'm just glad to be the also ran. But I will say this.
Right.
Look, we appreciate President Obama for his intervention in behalf of what we hope will be the next president of the United States of America in Vice President and hopefully soon President Kamala Harris. We know that Obama brings incredible credibility because of his uh, presidency, 8 years, and the remarkable things he did. However, or as James Brown would say, howsoever, um, the truth is, the truth is, the truth
Wait,
is,
wait a minute. This is what the Ivy League does to our
I gotta go.
so here's the thing. You'd have even more credibility if, when it was your time to endorse her, you did it ahead of the pack.
Hmm.
Let's see. You did it before Nancy Pelosi. Oh no. You did it before Hakeem Jeffrey. Oh, well, no. You did it before Charles Schumer. Well, no. You did it before several senators. Well, no. You did it before for several congressmen and women. Oh, well, no. You did it before national leaders. Well, no. You brought up the rear, sir. You could have used and deployed your significant charisma and your political capital to when it was a question as to whether or not it would be Kamala Harris, that you could put your finger on the scale. You know, he famously says, I don't want to put my thumb on the scale to weigh the scales of justice. That's when you're the president. That's when you are officially in office. You ain't the president no more, bro. And at this time, it is necessary to deploy your capital in defense of the person that you would choose, or that you would think, or that you would endorse to be president of the United States of America. By the time he did it, it was an also ran, it was ho hum, it was basically, an already done deal. And so people used to claim about President Obama that his foreign policy was leading from behind. And it seems to be, to me, that he's doing the same thing here in terms of leading from behind. So if you had reason, could we apply the same reasons he said to black men to him? We don't think you're a patriarch. We don't think you're a misogynist. We don't think you're sexist. Are you worried about being the only black to ever hold that office? Are you concerned about your legacy being somehow besmirched because someone will now eclipse it? I don't think any of that is true, but you leave yourself vulnerable to such speculation because it took you so long. And now for you to weigh in on black men and their relationship to Kamala Harris. Look, ain't nobody been more critical of black men over the years. I wrote a book called Why I Love Black Women 21 years ago, before Black Girl Magic, before Black Boy Joy. It wasn't a thing. I was intervening because I saw sexist and misogynistic impulses toward black women trying to really derail the incredible progress that they had made and the recognition to which they were due, that they were due. So, and I've talked about homophobia, transphobia, patriarchy, sexism, misogyny, all of that, all in the black church, right on the spot. So I'm sympathetic to that and telling black men, stop with the patriarchy and misogyny and so on. But having said that, there's also a legitimate claim to be made as black men that we as a constituency, number one, deserve the same kind of recognition that other constituencies do. Number two, the truth is the following, that black men after black women, ain't nobody gonna beat black women. Y'all just the coldest on earth. We can't, what we gonna do? Y'all are the leading supporters of Kamala Harris. Number two, black men. So already we in the lineup, we in the queue. Should we do more? Absolutely. But if Obama wants complete legitimacy in this, why not speak to the white women, half of whom are voting for Trump? Why not talk about the other people who have been peeled off because of their refusal to support Kamala Harris, or because they've been seduced or in one sense, transfixed by the appeal of Donald Trump? So he leaves himself vulnerable when he makes such a blanket claim. It's unfortunate because we could use his voice at this particular time to shore up the kind of support for Kamala Harris, even among black men. And I'm not saying black men should not be ever criticized. I'm saying at this particular point, your intervention has created more disgust and resentment and kicked up more fury as a result of your, quote, endorsement than otherwise might have been the case had you been more sympathetic to what was going on, and then to encourage black men to step into the fray to support Kamala Harris. So I'm sure your panel has already brilliantly deconstructed it, but that's just my 2 cents to the matter.
No, it's not 2 cents, because you said this at Fellowship Missionary Baptist Church, which is one of our iconic churches. Indeed, we all knew and loved Reverend Clay Evans, whom you knew, who was one of your fathers in the ministry, because he was one of the few black ministers, Dr. Latrice, Attorney Fancher, and Attorney Hoffler, to give Dr. King his pulpit.
Right.
And he paid a horrifically high price for it. When I say horrifically high price, he was building a megachurch, because he was like, well, he and C.L. Franklin and a few others were like the biggest black preachers in America at the time. The mayor shut down all of the avenues for him to finish the building of his church. So as church members, we had to march past rusting beams for 6.5 years.
Mm-hmm.
And it was designed to break his church, but no, it did not. What we ended up doing was he added more services. So we were in church from about 7 a.m. until 11 o'clock at night, and we didn't want to leave.
Right.
But he paid a price, and you chose to bring this message, which, quite frankly, Reverend Dr. Dyson, would have been controversial You wouldn't have been able to, no, you wouldn't have been able to say this
Mhm.
a few years ago. Certainly not in 2007 and 2008.
Right.
Why did you choose to deliver it there? And what has changed that enabled you to be able to say this now?
Yeah, those are very insightful reflections there, Ms. Jackson. So, look, first of all, the historic legacy of that church with Reverend Clay Evans, then with Reverend Charles Jenkins, and now with Reverend Reginald Sharp Jr. You know, incredible young preacher, an incredible pastor. And Clay Evans, of course, as you said, a historic legacy to that church, opening his doors to Dr. King. But he opened them because the Reverend Jesse Jackson, let's just never forget, one of the greatest leaders, not only of our time, but of all time. Now, everybody got to have their own list. I got my top five. Top five: Martin Luther King Jr. number one, Frederick Douglass number two, Jesse Jackson number three, um, Harriet Tubman number four, and we can argue about Du Bois or Al Sharpton or whoever at number five. Right. So I'm saying that these are the most incredible leaders among so many others who have been incredible and powerful for a variety of reasons. Reverend Jesse Jackson opened up the North in a way that had not been previously done. Dr. King majored in the South and moved his movement north, Cleveland and in Chicago, and was seen as, quote, a failure in Chicago by narrow minded analysis because the barriers in the North were far more difficult and complicated. And Jesse Jackson understood more readily what was at stake there and how to understand the psyche of Northern preachers who didn't feel indebted to a civil rights movement because they weren't immediately in the South at the point of contact. And so they were barricading themselves behind a kind of evangelical theology that resisted a politicization that the South could not help. Jesse Jackson was the bridge figure between those and understood the rituals and the practices and the theology of the North and was able to penetrate that, recruit Clay Evans so that Martin Luther King Jr. could have a space. So I, knowing that history, wanted to articulate those ideas in Chicago, in the home of President Obama and of Reverend Jesse Jackson and of Reverend Clay Evans and now of Dr. Sharp, and to say that in that church because the old people used to say where you did it is where you get it. If you gonna act fools in public, you gonna get disciplined in public, right? We understood that. And I wanted to come to the hometown of these great figures because I have deep respect for President Obama, but he has had an addiction to disciplining in public black men in particular, but black people more generally, refusing to discipline white folk. Now, you can say, well, wait a minute, hold on now. Let's be honest. He's a black man. Black people can speak to black people, but he's biracial. So half of you is white people. You ain't speaking to the other half. You ain't speaking to the white folk that you have a legitimate claim to speak over because part of your biography is my grandmama is white, my mama is white, I know the white folk, what happened in Kansas, what happened in Hawaii, and the so on. And we appreciate that biography. But you never deploy your rhetorical strength against the stronghold of white supremacy at the heart of white culture in the same way and to the same degree that you do for black people. And so you're performing your disciplining of black people in a public space where white eyes observe it and are reinforced in their values and beliefs about black culture. That is, to me, problematic, that is sometimes dangerous and usually destructive. So I wanted to Chicago to make that point, and we can do it now because we've expanded. We've had a deeper understanding. Reverend Jesse Jackson paid an enormously, I would say, unfair price because of his critique of President Obama, and we all know what the phrase is. I ain't got to repeat it, but he wasn't wrong in this sense. He wasn't wrong in the sense of trying to criticize President Obama for his lashing of black people in public spaces, performing it so that white consumption of black critique could legitimate the beliefs already involved in the stereotypes of black people. That's a dangerous thing that needs to be opposed. We couldn't do it 10 years ago, 15 years ago, because Obama's riding high. He's the president of the United States of America, and to do so would be costly in a way that both Reverend Jeremiah Wright found out, and certainly Reverend Jesse Jackson, even more particularly Reverend Jesse Jackson, because he had the courage to criticize Obama. Now, he didn't go in public and try to disrespect the man. He made a statement that got publicized and then got punished for it. The same president, however, who held that against Reverend Jesse Jackson didn't hold it against Joseph. What is the senator out of Connecticut?
You
Who
mean I'm not Biden's not from Connecticut, but remember he called him clean and articulate.
was that?
Remember he called Biden called him clean and articulate. He got into trouble about that in that campaign cycle in 2008.
Right.
Oh, but Joseph
Right. But Lieberman. What's the first thing that Obama did when he got in office? Do not punish Joe Lieberman. Do not take him off of his committee. Do not go against him. So he protected a man who went with his opponent and supported his opponent over him. He committed, quote, not only party disloyalty, but disloyalty to Obama. So I'm saying all that to say this was a way for me to echo and embrace the revolutionary ministry of Reverend Jesse Jackson, to tell the truth about the political compromise that is often in play with President Obama, and the specific way in which he has criticized black people in public for the fetishization and the romanticization of a certain kind of blackness that white people hold in mind. So I figured at this point, I got enough legitimacy, political capital, and I am who I am, and I do what I do to come to that church and to celebrate those figures and also to articulate that critique.
And you were embraced. Your message was embraced, and I will remind people, certainly not in the language, but Reverend Jackson never said that he would harm President or then Senator.
Never.
He said if he does not stop talking down to black people,
Right.
someone is going to do harm to him.
Right. But his point is right. His point about the larger point is right. The larger point was you're talking down to us, you're condescending to us, you're using us in a politicized fashion that is deeply and profoundly problematic. The man wasn't wrong then, he's especially right now. And we see this because after leaving office, what has Obama done in terms of a contribution to the things he said, we're holding him back when he was in office? He ain't in office no more, and yet we have not seen an outpouring of. And look, I ain't mad at nobody. Make your money, hang out with the rich people, do what you got to do. The bottom line is, however, that President Obama, as great and as wonderful and as magnificent as he has been in many ways, is also problematic. And it's more difficult when he's in office to make that claim than it is now when it becomes apparent that what took you so long with Kamala Harris? What shut you down? Why were you saying, along with Nancy Pelosi, well, let's have an open convention, let's figure out. Look, you see how tight it is now? What do you think that would have been had Kamala Harris not immediately received the support within 24 hours, all that money, and then within 48 hours, people falling in line, and then a few days after that, most people lining up to endorse her. And Obama still hadn't endorsed her. What was your reason? What was your rationale? What was your hesitancy? What was your pause? So at this level, we got questions, bro. We ain't worried about black men, 85% of whom are going to vote for Kamala Harris, and we want to get more. I'm headed to Detroit, my hometown, today, because I want to help recruit black men in particular. And I have held black men to account, myself included. I've held black men to account for the things that we have done. And black women have stood beside us and ahead of us and articulated ideas and beliefs and possibilities that have helped us significantly. So I'm down with the cause, President Obama, but you ain't got to whiplash. You ain't got to demean. You ain't got to condescend and say the brothers when you have not simultaneously held white America to account. Because you the president. You wasn't just no black leader. You were the president of the United States of America. Let me say this. I'll end by saying this. I was at Oprah's house was it 2007 or 2008 when she did that first big fundraiser for Barack Obama that really changed the landscape. I'm in the corner. Me, Barack Obama, and Chris Rock. So this ain't something I heard from somebody. I'm going to tell you what I heard. Chris Rock says to Obama, and Chris Rock has said this story before. My daddy told me that when you fighting white folk, you can't outpoint them. You got to beat them. You got to knock them out. He said, because remember Jerry Cooney and I think it was Larry Holmes were in the fight, and Larry Holmes was pummeling Jerry Cooney. They finally stopped the fight. On the scorecards, the referees had Jerry Cooney ahead of Larry Holmes. And Larry Holmes was massacring him. And the only reason Larry Holmes won is because he knocked him out. He turns to Obama. I'm telling you what I heard. And said, you can't just outpoint white folk. You got to knock them out. Now, Obama tells the story of Chris Rock. And he goes, Chris Rock says, black people always want recognition for stuff they should do. I take care of my kids. Fool, you supposed to take care of your kids. Obama will say that part, but he ain't gonna never say the part about knocking the heck out of white folk. My point simply is, tell the whole truth, sir. Now, you can do it with discretion. I'm not saying be stupid about it. I'm not saying be reckless about it. Everybody has a strategic approach to how you're going to articulate controversial ideals that might undermine your support. But I'm saying stop using us as the whipping boy and the bully pulpit for your own aggrievement about your father, about the problems you got with black men, and how that has come about. I mean, Reverend Jesse Jackson has been as critical of black men as anybody we know in public life, but he does it with love because he balances it. What did he say when he was a young leader, late 20s, early 30s? It takes more than making a baby to raise a baby, to be a father, right? He was critical of black men. He went on 60 Minutes and started talking about not only that, he talked about our refusal to take education seriously. Ain't nobody been more critical of elements of black America than Reverend Jesse Jackson. But why is he legitimate? Because he balanced it out, talking about white supremacy, social injustice, Jim Crow, segregation, the depletion of capital in our neighborhoods, the shift from manufacturing to service industries and how it disproportionately impacted black America, and on and on and on. That's how you do it. You go whip us, whip the other side too, and show us that you are concerned about both issues and interests, and then we can take that butt whipping far more charitably.
When you're in Detroit, given because I'm watching social media and the backlash is real.
Mm.
And it appears to be growing, Reverend Dr. Dyson. I mean, because there's been a silence. I wish the president would come out and say, didn't mean to hurt your feelings. When Reverend Jackson made errors during the first campaign in 84, his speech in 1984 at the convention was,
Right.
if my joy bell lost its resonance, I am sorry. Anyone I've hurt, I apologize. Right. Please be patient with me. God is not through with me yet.
That's right.
What are you going to say? Should he do that? And what are you going to say to black men in Detroit?
Right.
You and
I
Greg
ain't count.
Mathis are from the same place, and y'all have an understanding of where of the roads that our black men have traveled. You really do understand that because like all of us, you have different experiences in your own family.
Yes, ma'am. Absolutely right. Look, first of all, I ain't dependent upon President Obama issuing no apology. I mean, Reverend Jesse Jackson comes out of a tradition of love and forgiveness, right? Because as a leader, as a black leader in a white supremacist culture, he couldn't even operate without understanding that as much as I'm going to oppose white supremacy, I forgive my enemies in light of the gospel of love and radical compassion for the vulnerable, even for those who mistreat us, right? So he's got a whole different theology involved there. And I don't think President Obama, first of all, he don't think he's wrong. I know he doesn't think he's wrong. He don't think he's wrong, and he ain't gonna say nothing. As the brothers in the street would say, irregardless of all the trauma and stuff they got, right? He ain't gonna apologize. So we ain't waiting on that. What am I gonna say? I'm gonna say to the brothers, I'm gonna say to them, this is not Kamala the cop, right?
Mhm.
Right? This ain't the prosecutor that's coming to put you in jail. This is Mamala. This is a woman who understands, right? If we got attorney CK Hoffler on here, right? We got Dr. Latrice on here. We got Sister Jackson on here. Black women have led the fight for black men, right? In ways we have not returned. Let's just be real about it now. See, that's kind of critique we can make. We can say, men, I love you, I appreciate you, but you darn well know that the sisters have been at the forefront of trying to make sure that black men's interests are taken care of, right? We can't even deny that. So what can we do to return the love, to circulate the favor, to say to black women, we have appreciated how you have stood up for us. We now want to do our part to stand up for you. Now, there are many people out there. The reason Kamala's here, because she understands you as a black man working on the factory. She even understands you as a brother trying to get your child support together, or you getting denied from your baby mama access to your own kid. Let's just be real with it now. She understands all that. So here's a woman whose policies can afford you greater opportunity to maximize your economic, your social, and your political standing. That's what I'm gonna say to them. And I'm from the hood, and I'm from the D, and I've been through it. And let's be real too. It ain't like, with black people, and this is what the media does versus where we are as a people. Well, we don't want no cop and stuff. Ain't nobody calling the police more than black people. Let's just be real. You in the hood, you dealing with all kinds of tremendous difficulties. And we know if you living in crime infested neighborhoods, you want to be protected. They're selling drugs, they're out here doing all kind of nefarious things. So it's not like we don't need any kind of protection. And her programs have benefited people, second chance opportunities, reform of the police departments, and reform of our criminal justice system. All that stuff is real. But on the other hand, here is a woman who is extending the possibility of social reconstruction in our local judicial situations and nationally, in trying to come to grips with the forces that really undermine black men. Especially, think about it. The recession was a man session at a certain level. More men lost jobs, especially black men, than others. Here are policies that will help. Donald Trump, you might think he's the stuff because he got swag. First of all, his swag is borrowed. He done ripped it off, number one. Number two, here's a guy who want to put the Central Park Five, now the Exonerate Five, in prison. No, he wanted to actually have them executed.
Right.
Him and his daddy didn't want to rent you no buildings. And now you think he's cool because some rappers thought he was dope? Come on, bro. So I want to speak to that reality, talk about what she represents, and encourage us to more greatly embrace this woman who is definitely our best hope in this election.
You know, before you go, I
Mhm,
want the panel to be able to speak to you, but I have another question because you
mhm,
did you led with something that it kind of threw me. Why was it important for you to lay out that President Obama and First Lady Obama were slower to endorse
mhm.
Kamala Harris? Why did you feel that that was important to state?
Boy, boy, you be trying to get away with stuff subtly, and then Santita Jackson be just bringing you right back to the issue. Dang.
Oh, that's what
Look.
you did yesterday. I was just trying to figure it out. I had to hurry up and get to YouTube to see what you said because my brother called me while I was on the air. He
Yes,
said, "You need
ma'am.
to hear this."
Well, let's be real. Let's be real. Um, some of us want to be the only one in the room. We want to be the one that's regarded more highly than others. We want to be the point person. And when you're the only one, look, you the only look. Barack Obama is Jackie Robinson.
Yeah.
And Jackie Robinson, part of his qualification was what? Not that he was the greatest ball player. He was a hell of a ball player, but he wasn't no Larry Doby. He didn't have the kind of skills that others had, but he had tremendous skills. So he had great enough skills, and what else? He could take it. No matter what these white folk did to him, he could bite the bullet and not respond. And trust me, I've been through enough of that even in recent times when these reactionary right wing folks saying that, and you got to hold your powder, right? So Jackie Robinson was that figure. Kamala Harris is Willie Mays, and Willie Mays had not only greater talent, right, but he played with a kind of release and abandon, a kind of joy. Sound familiar? The joy of Kamala Harris. Laughing. And people trying to clown her for it. She's laughing because she's free, Negroes. She's laughing because she can look at people and go, ain't that a trip? She's laughing because it's a derisive laugh at some elements. It's a celebratory laugh at others. It's, I got this so cold and so clean and so clear, I can celebrate in joy. But that's been made possible because of previous sacrifice. So Jackie Robinson looking at Willie Mays, better ball player, greater skill, and playing with abandon. And I think that Jackie Robinson, Obama, looks at Willie Mays, Kamala Harris, and sees some potential stuff that even he didn't possess. Now, maybe not because he lacked skill, but he lacked the timing and opportunity. And he lacked the understanding of a particular function of blackness in public. See, they're both biracial, but it's a different one, a different variety. She's an AKA. She went to an HBCU, and she was deeply indebted to a mama who told her, you a black woman. Her Indian mother told her, you are a black woman. Now, I'm not saying Obama's mama didn't understand it as a white woman, but when he says he's the mother, he's the son of a single mother, your single mother had a PhD, Holmes. That ain't really Shaniqua or Jaquita, right? That's a different understanding. You a single mama, but that's different. And your mama left you with your grandparents, which you had the right and the beautiful ability to have as she pursued her education and married again and so on and so forth. So the point is that that's not representative or typical of what we might necessarily confront, even though we appreciate the incredible insight and virtue of that alliance and those familial lines. So I'm saying all this to say that Obama's blackness resonated in a particular fashion, just as legitimate as hers, but it represents differently in public. And her embrace of that may be threatening. Maybe like I ain't the only one no more. I ain't the prize child no more. I was the only child for a long time. Then mama went and got married again and got another kid. Now I got to share with that kid, right? So to me, Kamala Harris may be, I'm not saying it is, threatening to somebody who may have wanted to be the only one. And I'm not suggesting that about Obama, but since you speculating about why black men didn't support Kamala, what took you so long? What motivated you to remain silent? Why did you join? Even Nancy Pelosi, who was down with you at the beginning, let's have an open convention. Nancy Pelosi immediately saw the writing on the wall and said, I'm with her, right? Hakeem Jeffries and Charles Schumer, more than you, Obama, they had the reason we are in office. We have to be careful. Even they endorsed her before you. So I'm asking for some friends, like what took you so long to put your hat into the ring, so to speak, or to support her putting her hat in the ring and going forward? It was problematic. I saw a tweet. I ain't gonna tell you the tweet. It said, "N-word help, N-word help." Right? That's all they said, and they knew we knew what he was talking about. Right? So my point is that the masses of people understood, bro, what your refusal to endorse meant. Now you gonna flip it, and you a Johnny come lately, and you don't understand why other men might have. Now look, I don't understand why, and I'm gonna jack them up, and I'm gonna be critical of them, but I try to be empathetic. Okay, you say the reason you ain't supporting her is because of X, Y, and Z. Trump gave you a check. Stop tripping. That was the U.S. Congress who endorsed that money. He didn't even want to give it to you. If you want to help, if you want to support a president who gave you a check, turn to Joe Biden, who against the recommendations of this conservative Congress still found a way to forgive loans, student loans for people, and 3 people I know got forgiven $100,000 apiece. So, bro, if you want to talk about who's going to help us out in terms of direct payments, look at Joe Biden and therefore the woman he is supporting, Kamala Harris. So we can make arguments to these black men that sometimes seem to us nonsensical, but we take them seriously. Because what's more nonsensical than white, conservative, working class people supporting a billionaire president who doesn't give a damn about who they are? So black men ain't the only people making judgments against their best interests and refusing to throw in with a woman who obviously can represent them far better than this orange apparition that has beclouded the political horizon.
Lord have mercy. Do you think? Do you think? Do you think? Michelle, do you think? Michelle, open up those mics. Come on, Dr. Latrice.
Oh my God.
I mean, I've never. No, it's okay. No, oh, Lord. But do you think Michelle can help it? Help her?
Yes.
Oh, pull up that Detroit Tigers hat. Come on, pull it up. don't
Wow.
apologize now.
See, you
If you
trying to bait me, man. You trying to bait me
I'm
up
not trying to
in
bait you.
Cut that volume
Wait,
down.
I opened up by
I gotta
saying
talk.
your wisdom and your courage, because quite frankly, you didn't know what you were walking into yesterday. Yeah, you can read the room and the sands have shifted, but you were willing. You stepped out in the prophetic space, and you used your prophetic voice.
Yeah.
Yesterday. And
Look,
that's
let me say this. Let me say this. I will say I was at the convention here in Chicago, right?
Mm-hmm.
And she gave one of the coldest speeches in the
Ever.
history of American oratory. I mean, just phenomenal. So I honestly do believe that Michelle Obama could play a significant role in boosting the fortunes of Kamala Harris. Yes, I honestly do believe that. Because she has even more legitimacy at this point than her husband. And she's a black woman. And she understands what black women are up against. So when Michelle Obama speaks, a whole bunch of folk are listening. So yes, I do believe that Michelle Obama has the ability and the capital to use in defense of Kamala Harris. And I think her greater visibility could be significant. I think her greater visibility in all of this could play a heck of a role in boosting the fortunes of Kamala Harris. I do believe that.
I believe that. Before you go, I want everyone in a couple of minutes, because he is catching a plane and he has got to get to Detroit, and we'll probably see you up there. I'll be up there in another day or so with my brother, Congressman Jonathan Jackson, because everybody's campaigning for Vice President Harris up there.
Right.
Dr. Latrice, a couple of minutes for you.
Yes, I thank you for those eloquent comments, Dr. Eric Dyson, Michael Eric Dyson. But I just wanted to say that when we started this conversation earlier, we just examined like the trauma imposed on Black men. So I'm so glad that someone was not afraid to step up and to speak on their behalf, because I think that we don't realize the compound trauma that's been inflicted on Black men as a whole. And if we don't, as Black women or Black people, speak up for our Black men, it just continues a greater cycle, more vicious cycle. So when it comes to the election and the things that are not being done, how about let's start from the very beginning in addressing Black men and the issues that impact us. And so until then we don't have to wait until the 9th or the 11th hour and speak up about what is not being done or not being said in the message, and the messenger comes across incorrectly.
Attorney C.K. Hoffler, a couple of minutes.
Yes. First of all, when I gave you an award when I was president of the NBA, you've always been cold and bad to the bone. Having said that, of course, Michelle Obama can help tremendously Vice President Kamala Harris, period, in the discussion. I was at the convention too. The coldest speech, period. So many levels. We don't need to spend time on that. she can be a game changer, and I believe she will be.
Right.
I'm glad, Dr. Dyson, that you address the issues and that you're going to address issues of Black men, because I have 2 sons, and I guarantee when I talk to my boys, and when I'm explaining stuff, they'll say, "Yeah, mom." Of course, they still call me mommy. "Yeah, mommy," this and that, and they're in college. But if you said it, they would be like, "Yeah." And if don't let a member of Omega Psi Phi say it with my son, because he put up the hooks. My point is that Black men listen to Black men, need to hear from Black men. And even though we as Black women certainly can articulate certain things in our positions, it's great to hear from a Black man, especially one of your credibility. Great surrogate. You are a great surrogate for Kamala Harris, because being a surrogate, like I feel I'm a surrogate, it doesn't mean I agree with everything that the Biden administration, Harris administration did.
Right.
I'm a surrogate. I'm reminding people, okay, let's talk about those issues. Yep, okay, that's good. But let's put it in the big picture. Let's not go sideways. Let's not get distracted. Let's not let this be divisive in our community. Don't let people define what we are going to do in our community. So that's how I look at it. But I think you're a great surrogate for her, and I agree with you. And I said this before, we ain't waiting for no apology.
Right.
There ain't gonna be no apology. I wouldn't hold my breath. If there is, good, but it's already been done. So now we've got to do the thing to win, despite what anybody says.
That's right.
And so I appreciate you bringing to focus a lot of the issues in the way that you have, and your voice, because your voice will resonate with the community and the demographics that we needed to resonate with. And all of us can resonate with the global community. But right now, I think for her to win, we need to consolidate that base and continue to educate and make sure that people get out to vote. However, we do that. So appreciate you for doing that.
Attorney Mark Fancher, you are in Detroit. And what say you? Because I know for you, this is beyond this political cycle. This is beyond the party. This is beyond parties. This is beyond a race. This is about so much more. Your thoughts?
Yeah. First, Doctor, it's been a while since we've crossed paths, but it's always good to see you.
Good to see you, my man.
Yeah. Also, irregardless of my different perspective, I want to start on a point of agreement. And that is for any of the brothers who, for whatever reason, are disappointed with Kamala or Barack Obama or whoever it may be, the absolute wrong thing to do is to throw your support to Trump. That's almost criminal to do that. So we'll start there. But I think what also exists, in the community generally, it comes from, the way I perceive it, my number one Black leader is Jesus of Nazareth. And what he did when he was confronting an empire, the Roman Empire that was oppressing and exploiting and abusing his community, is he said, we're not going to try and get into that. We're not going to try and run people for the Roman Senate. We're not going to try and influence the Roman Empire. We're just going to separate ourselves from it. Absolutely, just separate ourselves from it and support ourselves. We're going to sustain ourselves. We're going to become a self-determining nation that's independent. And I think that when you move ahead a little bit in history and you move to the plantations, you found people there were some who were trying to buy into the system by getting into the big house and trying to negotiate with the master and the slave owning class and trying to get favor with them. But there were also more enslaved Africans who were just trying to destroy slavery as an institution. They were rebelling at every opportunity, destroying farm equipment and crops, running away, organizing insurrections and all of that kind of thing, because they recognize there's no future in trying to negotiate your way into the slave institution. My fear and my concern, and I think that you'll run into it in Detroit, where there is a long history of efforts at liberation and self-determination. Malcolm X was here. Republic of New Africa was born here. Coleman Young was here, establishing a base of Black power. The Shrine of the Black Madonna, we could go on, is that there is a perception that many have, including myself, that if we were on the plantation now, that what we're trying to do by trying to win the election, by trying to get influence within the Democratic Party, is trying to negotiate our way into the big house. And what many of of us want to do is to burn the big house down. And so I think that that's real. And I think that it's something that needs to be contemplated anytime we have these discussions.
Mm-hmm. Are you voting for Kamala Harris?
I am voting for Cornel West.
Oh, okay, I got you. Bless your heart. Yeah. No, I think that's a legitimate perspective to have, but I'm gonna negotiate with the white man so that you can have the freedom to burn that plantation down. Look, because when you talk about what happened on the slave plantation, right? What happened? As you said, they broke the legs of the animals so that they couldn't, right, deal with the wheat and deal with the soil. They broke the tools, the implements they had. They even, to the horror of some, aborted babies. Because before I'll be a slave, I'll be buried in my grave and go home to my God and be free. And they rebelled in the fashion that you referred to in a significant way. Then Reconstruction comes when those who took the opportunity to then join the government, who began to become Congress people or senators, right? And who joined school boards and who began to reshape the polity of the culture. I don't think it has to be an either or. I think it has to be both and. I think we both need revolutionary resistance that challenges the legitimacy and the logic of an institutional formation that stands. And then I think we also need folk who are willing at a certain level to negotiate, right? You mentioned Detroit, the revolutionary figures. One you didn't mention is Kenneth Cockrell, right? Kenneth Cockrell was a revolutionary with the drum movement. And then when he couldn't find space in the League of Revolutionary Workers, Black workers, started another organization, right? So the point is, and then he became a councilman for a term. And then he was poised to become mayor. That to me is the revolution as pure as it will be found, also understanding the political machinations of a government that is necessary to be negotiated with at a certain level. So we can have Attorney Fancher's deep investment in a revolutionary resistance that, quote, burns the system down. And in the meantime, in the interregnum, to have a political force that is able to at least instantiate some of the policies and policies that are necessary to reflect on the interests of Black people. So voting for Donald Trump is an absolute no. To me, voting for Kamala Harris is the only way. No disrespect to my friend and mentor, Dr. Cornel West, but that's another pipe dream that, although necessary in terms of its revolutionary intent, can be absorbed by a politics of recognition among Black people to vote for a person who has the best chance to impact the Supreme Court, to impact the local prosecutor, to impact the ways in which the distribution of political power will play an immediate role in the lives of ordinary Black citizens. So, right, we can disagree, but we can agree on the ultimate aim and goal, which is to figure out a way for the greatest amount of freedom to operate in our communities. And I applaud every effort to do so.
And we can agree on something else, and that is that as we all pursue our particular strategies, our own particular ideologies, that it's important that we understand each other's particular strategies and ideologies, and to the extent that we can, help there to be some synchronicity between them. I think Kenneth Cockrell is a good example. Chokwe Lumumba is another.
Right.
So it's a question of what our objective is. We can get to the end. We can get to liberation through a number of different ways and different strategies. But it's important that none of us tries to stop anybody else who is sincerely and honestly working for the liberation of African people.
Amen. Let the best woman win.
That is, and I don't think that anyone is trying to stop that. I mean, it's actually the exact opposite. I mean, being able to express yourself wherever you are, wherever you stand is important. However, I do think that when we are in a space where we hear misinformation, disinformation, and if we have the correct information, I believe as someone who has a radio show, it is my duty to kind of share that, not to shut anyone down, but just share the information. and to remind in this political season, believe people when they tell you who they are, and believe Project 2025. That's all I'm saying. And if people want to embrace and believe and love Project 2025, go at it, but believe it so that later, if something happens and Project 2025 is the rule of the land, don't say that you didn't have the ability to know that it was coming.
Right.
But but also understand that you got to make an argument that's going to land with people. And 2025 for some folks who cannot afford eggs and milk and things like that, it doesn't land. Should it? Yeah. And we've got to figure out a way between there have to be bridges between that which we theorize and that which we know to be true, because Congressman Jonathan Jackson said 2025 was already in effect.
Yeah.
There's been a rollout on that already.
So,
What we have to do is go. One of the things my father has said about leadership, and I'm going to let you close this out, Reverend Dr. Dyson. He said, we would have these debates, and you know that because you're part of the family, Reverend Dr. Dyson, as are you, Attorney Hoffler. And one of the things our parents have always done, they've encouraged us to think. And if we disagreed with them, disagree, and let's argue it out. And my father's always been, his point has been, present the right argument to me. If you want to bend my thinking, come with it. Okay. And so the question is, we have engaged in censorship, Reverend Dr. Dyson, because we call a dissenting view disinformation, which is not what it is.
Right.
It's another point of view. My point is, in this moment where the duopoly has been broken, the plurality of Americans are independent, however they skew, to the right or to the left. More and more Americans want nothing to do with either of the major parties. More and more Americans can't afford a house. University of Chicago, where you taught, is $100,000 a year for an undergraduate. I mean, the American dream. What? People, we can't even go to sleep. So I just need you to help me, give us a word as we are in the last 3 weeks of this campaign, as we are this close. Give us a word. Help us to understand where we are, where we need to be. Give me some talking points. How about that?
Yeah. No. Well, you got them all, and
No.
Attorney Hoffler and Dr. Latrice and Attorney Fancher. I mean, look. Every year, I want the Lakers to be in the finals because I've been a Lakers fan since I was a kid. But the Lakers don't make it to the finals every year, right? And so if they're going to crown a champion, they're going to crown who's in the game and who's playing. Now, I know that analogy doesn't work all across the board because we can make different choices about what we think is worthy of celebration. I get that. But in the game that makes a difference to ordinary Black people, right? Because, which is politics. Politics is about what? The distribution of critical resources to vulnerable populations in a moment of crisis, and how we make routine those delivery systems so that they are not seen as extraordinary and only gotten because you got more money, more status, more power. But they become a routine distribution premised upon the function of politics. That's what we're trying to do, is close the gap between the ideal and the reality. So for me, that means to have the best chance possible of changing the society in which we live and to reflect the ideals and principles that we enjoy. We have to have in place a series of people and policies that at least get us closer to the ideas for which we are willing, in some instances, to give our lives, but certainly to give our time. And I think that at this level, as Attorney Fancher said, the absolute worst thing in the world to do is to give space to Donald Trump. And so we got to do everything we can to defeat the monstrous possibility of fascism, autocracy, and the fight against the just rule of law by this figure as he continues to court. And the reason I did this in church yesterday to further answer your question, Ms. Jackson, is that the white right-wing evangelicals have so dominated this space religiously that when we hear evangelical, we think, oh my God, we're talking about white folk. The difference between white and black evangelicals is the following. White evangelicals want to use power to make this a Christian nation. Black evangelicals, at our best, want to use their faith to make this a just nation.
Mm.
And so for me, that's what's at stake. And if we can do that, if we can hew closer to justice in our fight for emancipation, for liberation, and for self-determination, then we have achieved to that degree what the best of our ancestors have at least hoped for, pushed for, fought for, and even died for. And so I recommend that people stand up, that they get registered if they ain't already, and the window is closing real fast, and that we mobilize the people that could vote. As your father said, the Reverend Jesse Jackson, in looking at, I think it was Georgia, that if of all the already registered voters, a higher percentage had voted, the outcome would have been different. So for me, at this level with three weeks left, that's the game, to maximize the outcome and the turnout of those who are interested in revolution, resistance, justice at a certain level. We can all come together at this point to figure a way forward, and that's what I'm about, and that's what the message I'm promoting.
Well, you know what? I can live with that. I can live with that. And, I thank you for your prophetic voice. I thank you for your personal counsel, not just to me, but to all of us, because I think that you have been the balm in Gilead that we have needed today. Because there's a lot of pain, there's a lot of misunderstanding. We are people who've been broken, but we have never just been, we've been in a lot of pieces, but we've been struggling to come back together. My father said, you must first understand the breaking of our people. And everything you do has to be in service of healing our people and helping us to come together. And as you said, one thing I will say, I've seen my father and I've seen you as you engage in the critique of our people. It's always been with love and with an understanding of our circumstance, Mark. I hear that with you. I hear that with you, Dr. Latrice. You're healing. And Reverend Dr. Michael Eric Dyson, I thank you for the love. I thank you for the healing. I thank you for the courage, because you've been courageous. Yesterday, you committed a very courageous act, and I wanted you to know that my mother and father said that about you yesterday. Very courageous act, and something that we really needed. And we've needed these 3 hours of conversations today. And I thank you for staying with us, Mark and Dr. LaShawn Latrice, because there's a lot of debate going on, a lot. And now what we need more than ever is we need some healing. We've got to find a way to move forward.
Yes.
You can't move forward. You can't go through it unless you grow through it, right?
That's it. Thank
Yeah.
you.
Reverend Dr. Michael Eric Dyson,
Thank
thank
you.
you. I salute the divinity in you and just thank you. And you keep on hanging in there, because you
God
take the
bless.
hits and you like the weeble who wobbles, but you don't fall down. I ain't mad at you. You keep on coming back. I love it.
Thank you, love. God bless all of y'all. Take good care now.
Love you. God
Thank
bless.
you. Love you.
Love you. And love you, Mark Fancher. Love you, Dr. LaShawn Latrice. I hope this helped, having being on these extra hours. I wouldn't ask this of you, but I just had the feeling, and particularly Mark gets to be the outlier. But I have so
Way of life.
well, but he sounds very much like my mother. Your political beliefs are almost in absolute lockstep. That's why I can't wait for you to meet her, because my mother said, if it's not moral, I don't want to touch it. And she told my father, okay, now we don't have to. We're not running for president anymore. Now I can tell you how I really feel about abortion, y'all. Now I told you how I felt before. She said, but I don't like this. I'm not going to tell you I like this. No, I'm not going to vote for somebody who signs up for the genocide. I'm not going to do that. And y'all can get mad with me. I don't care. And she said, in politics, it's about making a deal, but you don't sell your soul for it. She said, but if we don't come back to God, none of this is going to work.
That's right.
Because my mother does believe in heaven and hell. I want you to know. This new stuff, these new theologies we come up with, my mother does not believe in them at all. She said, no, some of us are going to hell, some of us are going to heaven. I'm at 80, I'm too close to try to get to heaven. I'm too close to trying to get to heaven to turn around now. And so I want to thank you, Mark, for your courage, because I know sometimes what you say can be off-putting to people. But
well,
I know that you mean to make us a whole people and a good people. And so that's it.
No, well, I thank you. My perspective and the perspective of people who believe as I do is not given a platform anyplace, which is why I so appreciate this one. So,
well, you have it. You know, you're home here. That's why I reach out to you. And he's like, here we go again. But, you know, that's all I can tell you.
okay.
But God bless you.
Day.
Hey, everybody, I love you, everybody. I hope you all enjoyed the 3 hours today. And John Holloman said, Mark Fancher, keep speaking facts. I'm not mad at you.